Hi, this is Katie from SI UK. Today I'm going to show you how to answer an IELTS Writing Task 1 question. This is the second of two videos, and here I'll be talking about the key grammar you'll need to write the body section. If you haven't seen it already, please go back and watch part 1 of this series, where I discussed steps 1 to 4 of my writing method, analysing the question, making a plan, and writing the introduction and overview. So in this video, we're going to go through step 5 and step 6, writing the body and checking our spelling and grammar. So before we write the body, we first need to look at some key grammar. Let's start with describing changes. So there's two main structures you can use to do this. The first one is verb plus adverb. So a sentence like, the number of visitors increased dramatically. The second type is adjective plus noun. So there was a significant rise in the number of visitors. Or Vatican Museum saw a considerable growth in its visitor numbers. Next, we need to think about the tense. Usually, task 1 questions are in the past, but they may use the present or future, so check the timescale carefully. For questions in the past, we can use the simple past or the past perfect. So simple past might say, visitor figures rose gradually over the period, or there was a slight drop from 1995. With these ones, we might use phrases like from, to with the year, or over the period. The past perfect should only be used when describing a change by a certain year. So by 2015, the number of visitors had increased dramatically. Or by 2000, the London Science Museum had become the least popular museum. Okay, and when we give these sentences describing changes, it's important to add supporting numbers. There are lots of different ways you can do this, but I've written a few here. So first, we could use from to. The number increased from approximately 8 million to 9.5 million. Or we could use by. The figure increased by about 1.5 million people. Or we could use reaching. The number gradually fell, reaching just over 2 million in 2015. Or finally, you can put the number as the sentence subject. In 1980, almost 4 million people visited the Shenzhen Museum. Okay, and the final grammar I want to show you today is comparisons. And this is really important if you want to get a good score for your Task 1 essays. Please don't forget to write some comparison phrases. Okay, so I've written a few different ways here that you can compare information. Firstly, we have EST words, highest, lowest, most, least, this kind of thing. So for example, the Louvre had the highest number of visitors throughout the period. Next, we have more or less than phrases, also higher than, lower than. So for example, more people visited the Shenzhen Museum than the London Science Museum in 2000. Okay. Next, we have connecting words, while, however, although. For example, we might say, although the Louvre saw the most visitors, the Vatican Museums had the largest increase. Okay, and finally, as phrases. These are pretty tricky, so I recommend spending some time practicing this grammar. For example, in 2015, almost as many people visited the Vatican Museums as the Louvre. Okay, now we're ready to write our body section. So first of all, let's take a look at our plan. We've got 2 paragraphs, and in the first paragraph, we're going to talk about the Louvre. We're going to say it's the highest, has its decrease in 1995, and the Vatican had the biggest change. In the next paragraph, we're going to talk about the Shenzhen and the London Science Museum. They started the same, decreased to 2000, and then Shenzhen increased. So now we have a rough plan. We just need to write these points out in full sentences using some of the grammar we've practiced. It can also be useful to write a quick grammar checklist with some of the grammar that we want to include in our body. So then when we're writing, we can tick them off and we know we're going to get a good grammar score. So here I've written some of the grammar points which I've described earlier in this video. Okay, let's have a look at the answer. So, the Louvre had the highest number of visitors throughout the period. In 1980, just under 8 million people visited, and this figure increased gradually, although there was a slight drop from 1995 to 2000. In comparison, the Vatican museums saw a much larger rise in numbers. It started with around 5 million visitors in 1980, but in 1915 almost as many people visited the Vatican museums as the Louvre. The London Science Museum and the Shenzhen Museum had a similar trend. In 1980, about 4 million people visited both of these museums, and the number slowly fell, reaching 3 million in 2000. After this, the number of visitors to the London Science Museum continued to fall, but more people started to visit the Shenzhen Museum from 2000, and by 2015 it had recovered to almost 4 million visitors. So, how did I do? Can you find all of these different types of grammar in my answer? Okay, final step, check our spelling and grammar. I know that you're very pushed for time when writing these essays, and many people probably skip this stage, but I really recommend trying to keep 1 minute or 2 minutes just to quickly check your spelling and grammar after writing your essay. So here, I just want to talk about a few common mistakes that I see from my students. The first one tends to be forgetting to write words in the past tense. So for example, a word like increase, we need to write the D and make it increased. With spelling, one of the most common spelling mistakes is forgetting to write 2 L's on words like gradually or million. And the last one is a really simple mistake, but it happens a lot. We get the numbers or the names of the categories mixed up. So for example, at the end of my answer, I've got this comparison with Shenzhen Museum and London Science Museum. But some students might write these the wrong way round. So we need to make sure that all of our numbers and all of our categories match the graph correctly. Okay, and with that we have finished our essay. Here you can see the final version with the introduction and overview, so please pause this video here if you want to take a look at the full essay. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you found this video helpful. Please contact us if you'd like to find out more about our IELTS and EAP courses or our study abroad services. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel to keep up with our latest videos. Thanks again, and good luck in your IELTS studies.